So back when I was in the market for a modern day hot hatch, I narrowed it down to 4 options. The S3, Golf R, A45 AMG, and the one that I eventually ended up going with, the M140i. And there were a few people who asked, oh well, why didn't you include an RS3 in your search? And the simple answer is there were too much. I don't have 40k to blow on a motor, and if I did, I'd much rather be sat in an M2 or M3 comp. That's just personal preference, please don't shoot me. But one car that eluded me for whatever reason was the Mark III Focus RS. They were right at the top end of my budget, but they were attainable, yet I didn't even bother going to test drive one. Maybe it was because I'd heard rumours about reliability issues in the past, or was I inadvertently being a badge snob? I don't know, I'm not normally. Regardless, it slipped through the net, and because you don't see them all that often, I kind of forgot about them. That was until my mate Jim pinged this message over to me a couple of months back, and well, here we are. He's lived with it for a while now, so I thought we'd get together and do a bit of a comparison video, kinda like the one that I did with the other cars, to see whether or not they live up to the hype, and figure out which one you're better off going for. So before he turns into one of those hardcore Focus RS owners and plasters a massive AirTech sticker down the side of it and bolts a WRC wing on the back, let's get into it. Now the Focus RS has always been a standout hot hatch in my eyes. I mean, you really can't miss them in the colours that they roll out the factory in, but they've always had the performance to match the in-your-face paint job, and the Mark III is no different. On paper, Ford say they produce 350 brake, but once you factor in a drivetrain loss, which is usually around 20% on cars with all-wheel drive, you'll be left in between 280 and 300 at the wheels, which is more than enough, especially when you put it in a chassis that's designed so you can use it whenever or wherever you like. My mate James is no stranger to a quick hatchback. He had an Auto S3 before this, but found it a bit boring to drive, and rather than swapping it for a manual version, he decided to jump ship altogether and try out something completely different. Initially, he was looking at 140s, but he sold his S3 before he found the right one, and as I know from previous experience, finding a one with the perfect spec can take months, and that was time that he just didn't have, so he broadened his search, and well, no points for guessing what he ended up with. The car he's got has virtually every optional extra, apart from the heated steering wheel and the sunroof. Kinda like mine. Forged wheels, blue Brembo calipers, door edge protectors, an upgraded stereo, shell seats, nitrous blue paint, blah blah blah. And the only 2 things that he's done to the car in his ownership so far is sort out the seating position, because apparently the stock height is so high it makes you feel like you're driving a bus, and he's fitted a valved Scorpion catback exhaust, which sounds fucking mental. Go for it. Now, as you'd expect from, well, any manual car really, it's a lot more engaging to drive than the 140, where you just sit back, point the wheels and stamp your right foot down. And the grip it produces from that all-wheel drive system paired with the Super Sports is nothing short of mind-bending, especially for a car that weighs over 1600 kilos with a driver behind the wheel. Usually all-wheel drive setups are a bit boring, especially these modern ones with all the electrical aids that stop you from having fun. But in the RS it just feels so much more effective than what you get in the Golf Rs and S3s. I don't know whether that's because you get less understeer diving into a corner, or the fact you can kick the back end out on the exit, or a mixture of the two. But it slingshots you out of bends like you wouldn't believe, and the hookup when you get on the power, even in the wet, is insane. It's by far the best cornering car in its class. If every road was made up of undulating hills and hairpins, then you'd feel a lot more comfortable sat behind the wheel of the RS. You don't have to think, well, if I mash the throttle here, how much counter steer am I going to need to input? Unless you put it in its party drift mode, which James hasn't got around to using yet because he wants to keep his licence. Unfortunately though, the majority of roads in the UK aren't like that, and if there's any sort of straight where the cars can just let the horses gallop, then that's where the RS will find itself in the 140's rear view mirror. On paper that shouldn't be happening, but once you factor in those pesky drivetrain losses and the fact that you just can't upshift quicker than the ZF box in the Auto 140, the RS starts falling behind pretty sharpish. James himself agrees that the BMW is noticeably the quicker car, so if all you're bothered about is out and out speed, then that's the one to go for, because although the RS is a lot more settled through the corners, if you have the balls big enough and the space to slide around, you can keep up no problem at all. He did even say that his old S3 felt faster, but wasn't sure if that was due to the seamless DSG gear changes rather than just an overall top speed. The RS would definitely benefit from having a map, even if it was just to sort out the torque curve rather than to boost its power, but as a, quotation marks, driver's car, it's top notch. If I had a manual 140 rather than an auto, then it might be a bit harder to choose between the two, but for an immersive one-to-one driving experience between man and beast, the RS wins hands down. Thing is, that's kind of where the compliments end. But being a Ford, the build quality just isn't as good as its German rivals. The majority of the interior looks like it was lifted directly from a transit van, barring those seats, which are really nice to be honest. The fuel filler cap juts out when it gets cold because it's just made of some cheap plastic, but if anything that helps you out because it fucking drinks fuel, so you're constantly opening it anyway. The stereo, even though it's upgraded, is, well, I'll let you read that. And there was the issue of the earlier cars being recalled to have the head gasket replaced, and quite a lot of them had to go back in to get more work done to them because of, well, shoddy fitting, which to be fair could have happened anywhere. So to decide which one I'd rather have then, here is a list of things I personally take into account when looking for a car. You might want to add some things to it, but these are the basics that I go off. Price, performance, handling, interior and exterior styling, and finally running costs. Price has to go to the M140i, since they're a couple of grand cheaper. Simple. Performance again has to go to the M-Lite. There was a clear gap forming every time I dropped the gear and put my foot down. But for handling though, I have to give a point back to the RS. It's not just better than the 140, it's better than anything else in its class. All-wheel drive with the option of having a rear-wheel drive bias is the best of both worlds really, isn't it? Interior styling, even though I'm not blown away by it, I'm going to give to the 140 because at least it doesn't look like the inside of a van. But as for the exterior, I'm going to give a point to the RS. It's not just the nitrous blue paint that swayed me, they just look far better from factory. Don't forget that I've tinkered with mine a little bit, which is why it looks like it does. Usually they're a lot more plain Jane, but seeing this in your rear view mirror, which you will if you own a M140i, is a really nice thing to look at. Lastly is running costs, and to be honest, they're both as bad as each other. The RS gets through fuel like Gaza necking pints at a free bar, and it'd be cheaper to repair and maintain Kim Kardashian rather than the BM, so to be honest, I'm just not going to give either of them any marks. There is a reason why both of these cars have a massive following, it's because they're both great fun to drive. Whether or not I'd buy an RS with my own money is debatable. I still think bang for your buck the M140i is the best modern hot hatch out there. But with the prices of classic Fords skyrocketing up to and beyond 6 figures in some cases, the RS might be the smart choice if you're wanting to play the long game. Especially when you look at the prices of the Mark IIs, they just don't drop. A big following also means there are a lot of aftermarket options you can go for as well, and there are some crazy power high spend builds out there too. So if you'd like to see what one of these things looks like once you've thrown another 15 grand at it, then drop this video a like and I might be able to get something organised. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments which one you'd pick and why. The M140i or the Focus RS, but keep it respectful, I don't want you all fighting. Well, you can squabble if you like, the more comments it gets the better the video does. You can always subscribe to the channel if you're new around here and want to see more content just like this, and I'll drop the links to my socials down below if you want to see what I'm up to before I actually upload, and all that other good stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!